The divorce papers felt heavier than they should have, or maybe that was just my heart. After 42 years of marriage, Eleanor had looked me straight in the eye and said she wanted someone who could still provide the life she deserved. At 67 years old, I'd lost my consulting job 6 months prior, and apparently I'd lost my worth along with it. Our children, Michael and Sarah, both in their 30s, had sided with their mother without hesitation. "Dad, you've let yourself go," Michael had said during our last conversation. "Mom deserves to be happy." Just like that, I was erased from the family I'd built, the life I'd known. I moved into a cramped studio apartment on the east side of town, the kind of place where the radiator clanged all night, and the walls were thin enough to hear every argument, every crying baby, every life that seemed more intact than mine. My retirement savings had been split in the settlement, leaving me with barely enough to survive. At 67, I thought I'd be enjoying golden years with grandchildren. I now wasn't allowed to see. Instead, I was filling out job applications and being told I was overqualified. Or, more honestly, too old. Then I found work at Morrison's Hardware, a small family-owned store that had been around since the 1950s. The pay was minimum wage, and the hours were long, but Tom Morrison didn't care about my age. He cared that I showed up on time and knew the difference between a Phillips head and a flathead. It wasn't the career I'd had, but it was something. It was purpose. Every morning at 6, I'd take the bus downtown, put on my red vest, and help people find the right supplies to fix their broken homes. The irony wasn't lost on me. The elderly woman appeared during my second week. She sat on the same corner every day, tucked against the brick wall of the closed post office, wrapped in a tattered brown coat that had seen better decades. Her face was weathered, like old leather, creased with lines that spoke of hardship I could only imagine. She never asked for money, never held a sign. She just sat there with her head bowed, occasionally glancing up at passers-by, with eyes that had given up expecting kindness. Something about her stillness broke through my own misery. Maybe it was because I saw a future version of myself in her hollow cheeks and trembling hands. Maybe it was because I knew what it felt like to be invisible. After my first week's paycheck, after I'd paid rent and bought the cheapest groceries I could find, I had $12 left. I stopped by her corner on my way to the bus stop and bent down, placing $3 in the plastic cup beside her. She looked up, startled, and for just a moment, our eyes met. She didn't smile, but she nodded, and that small acknowledgement felt like more than I'd received from my own family in months. It became my routine. Every day after work, I'd stop by that corner. Some days I could only leave $1 or $2. On good days, when I picked up an extra shift, I might leave $5. I never said anything. She never said anything. We existed in this silent understanding, two people who'd somehow fallen through the cracks of a world that had moved on without us. At home, my studio apartment echoed with absence. I'd tried calling Sarah once, hoping my daughter might be more understanding than her brother, but she'd let it go to voicemail. I tried again a week later. Same result. The message was clear. I'd replay memories in my mind like old films, teaching Michael to ride a bike, braiding Sarah's hair before school, family vacations to the lake house we used to rent. Now those memories felt like they belonged to someone else's life. One evening in late October, when the autumn air had turned bitter and the streets smelled of coming snow, I stopped by the woman's corner as usual. I'd had a particularly hard day. A customer had yelled at me for not moving fast enough to help him find a specific type of hinge, and Tom had gently suggested that maybe I should consider whether this job was too physically demanding. I was exhausted, discouraged, and the $3 I pulled from my pocket felt like the only good thing I'd done all day. As I bent down to place the money in her cup, her hand shot out with surprising strength and gripped my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold but firm. I nearly stumbled backward in surprise. "Wait," she said, her voice raspy from disuse. "Please." I steadied myself, looking into her face properly for the first time in months. Up close, I could see she wasn't as old as I'd thought. Perhaps in her early 60s, though life had aged her beyond her years. Her eyes, though tired, held an intensity that made me pause. "You've done so much for me," she continued, each word seeming to cost her effort. I see you every day. You barely have anything yourself. But still you come. Still you give. It is nothing, I said quietly, unsure how to handle this break in our silent arrangement. Just a few dollars. It is everything, she corrected me, her grip tightening slightly. You've kept me alive. Do you understand? On days when I thought about just walking into the river, I waited. I thought, maybe that man will come by again. Maybe there is still kindness somewhere. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd been so wrapped up in my own pain that I hadn't considered the depths of hers. I need to tell you something, she said, glancing around nervously, as if someone might overhear. Don't go home tonight. What? Please listen to me. Don't go back to your apartment tonight. Stay at a hotel, anywhere. Tomorrow morning, meet me here. I'll show you something. I'll explain everything. Her eyes were pleading now, desperate in a way that sent a chill down my spine. I don't understand. Your building. She interrupted. There is going to be an inspection, fire marshal, police. Something bad. I can't explain now, but trust me, please. You've trusted me with your kindness now. I am asking you to trust me with this. Every rational part of my brain told me this was crazy. This was a homeless woman I didn't know, asking me to abandon my home based on a cryptic warning. But something in her eyes, some desperate sincerity, made me hesitate. And honestly, what did I have to lose? My apartment was barely home anyway. There is a motel, I said slowly. 2 blocks from here, the riverside. Good. Stay there. I'll be here at 7 tomorrow morning. Promise me you'll come. Against all logic, I promised. I checked into the Riverside Motel that night, paying $42 for a room that smelled of cigarettes and pine. So I ate a convenience store sandwich for dinner and tried to sleep on sheets that felt damp despite being clean. Around midnight, I was awakened by sirens, lots of them. They seemed close, but sirens always sounded close in the city. I turned on the small television, flipping through late-night infomercials and old movies, finding nothing. Eventually, I drifted back to sleep. The next morning, my phone rang at 6:15. It was Tom Morrison. Robert, thank God. Are you all right? I am fine. Why? What is wrong? Your building. It is all over the news. There was a fire last night. Started around 11:30. Your floor was hit hardest. They're saying at least 3 people died. Are you somewhere safe? My hands started shaking. I am at a motel. I am fine, Tom. Jesus Christ, Robert, you are lucky you weren't home after we hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at nothing. 3 people dead. My floor. If I'd been in my apartment last night, how had she known? How could she possibly have known? At 7 o'clock sharp. I was standing on her corner. She was already there, looking more alert than I'd ever seen her. When she saw me, relief washed over her face. You came? You are alive. How did you know? I demanded, my voice harder than I intended. How did you know about the fire? She stood up slowly, gathering the few possessions around her into a canvas bag. Walk with me. There is a diner 2 blocks south. I'll buy you breakfast, and I'll explain everything. You'll buy me. Yes, she said firmly. Today, I buy. We walked in silence to Molly's Diner, a 24-hour establishment with cracked vinyl booths and a laminated menu that probably hadn't changed since the Reagan administration. She led me to a booth in the back corner and ordered coffee and eggs for both of us with a confidence that seemed at odds with the woman who'd been sitting silent on a street corner for months. Once the waitress left, she folded her hands on the table and looked at me directly. My name is Catherine Walsh. 20 years ago, I was a social worker. I spent my career working with at-risk families, trying to keep children safe, trying to help people who'd fallen through the cracks. I was good at my job, maybe too good. She paused to sip her coffee, and I noticed her hands didn't shake when she lifted the cup. I worked a case involving a prominent family in this city, powerful people, I documented evidence of abuse, neglect, criminal activity. I followed protocol. I reported what I found, and for that, they destroyed me. Her voice remained steady, but I could hear the old pain beneath it. They used their connections. I was accused of falsifying reports, of harassment. I lost my job, my license, my credibility. My husband left me. My own children believed the lies. Everything I'd built, everything I was, gone. Catherine. I am sorry, but what does this have to? Let me finish, she said gently. I lost my home, ended up on the streets. For years I was angry, bitter. I wanted revenge but had no way to get it. So I survived. And on the streets, you learn things. You become invisible, and invisible people see things others miss. She leaned forward slightly. Your building, Robert. I've been watching it for months, even before I saw you. There is a man who lives 2 floors above where you lived. His name is Derek Chan. He has been running a drug operation out of his apartment, small time, but growing. I heard him talking 2 nights ago with some associates. They were worried about a surprise inspection scheduled for Friday, worried about what might be found. One of them said maybe they needed to create a distraction. Another suggested fire was always effective. My blood ran cold. You heard them planning. I heard enough to know something bad would happen, and soon. I've learned to trust my instincts. When you bent down yesterday, when I saw your face after what was clearly a terrible day, and you still stopped to leave money for someone like me, I couldn't let you die. I just couldn't. The waitress brought our eggs. We ate in silence for a moment while I processed this. You saved my life, I said finally. You saved my life, and I don't even know how to begin to thank you. You already have, she said softly. Every single day for months, you've been thanking me. You gave me a reason to keep breathing. That is not a small thing. Catherine, you can't go back to that corner. You need help, real help. I've tried every shelter, every program. When you have my record, when you've been accused of the things I was accused of, doors close, they stay closed. An idea was forming in my mind, reckless maybe, but no more reckless than trusting a stranger's warning about a fire. I don't have an apartment anymore. The building is damaged, maybe condemned. I'll get my security deposit back, whatever wasn't destroyed. I have some money saved. Not much, but enough for a few months' rent somewhere cheap. Robert, what are you saying? I am saying we find a place, a small place, roommates. You get off the streets, I get someone to split rent with. We help each other. She stared at me as if I'd suggested we fly to the moon. You don't know me, not really. I know you saved my life. I know you've survived things that would have broken most people, and I know I am tired of being alone, aren't you? Tears welled in her eyes, the first real emotion I'd seen crack through her weathered exterior. Why would you do this? Because someone has to start trusting again, might as well be us. It took 2 weeks to find a place, a small 2-bedroom apartment in a building that was clean, if not fancy. Tom Morrison helped me move what little I'd salvaged from my old place. When I told him about Catherine, about what had happened, he just nodded and said, "You are doing a good thing, Robert. We need more of that in this world." Catherine moved in with almost nothing, just the clothes she'd been wearing and a small bundle of possessions she'd kept hidden. That first night, we sat in our unfurnished living room on folding chairs I'd bought at the hardware store, eating pizza from paper plates. And for the first time in nearly a year, I felt something close to peace. Over the following months, we built a strange but genuine friendship. Catherine started seeing a therapist at a community clinic, working through decades of trauma and loss. I continued working at Morrison's Hardware, and Catherine eventually found part-time work at the library, reshelving books and helping with literacy programs. Her background in social work made her a natural, and the head librarian didn't care about old accusations, only about Catherine's clear dedication to helping people. We established routines: coffee together in the mornings before work, dinner most evenings, taking turns cooking simple meals. We talked about our past lives, our regrets, our hopes. Catherine told me about her children, now adults, who she hadn't spoken to in over a decade. I told her about Michael and Sarah, about the grandchildren I'd never met. We mourned together these lost relationships, but we also began to accept them. Maybe, Catherine said one evening as we washed dishes together, maybe some relationships aren't meant to survive. Maybe we hold on to people because we think we're supposed to. Not because it is healthy. That is a hard truth, I said. Most important truths are. About 6 months after we'd moved in together, something unexpected happened. I was working the register at Morrison's when a woman came in looking for advice about fixing a leaking pipe. Something about her seemed familiar, the way she moved, the shape of her eyes. Then she turned fully toward me, and my heart stopped. Sarah, my daughter, froze, her face going pale. Dad, we stood there in the middle of the hardware store, two people who shared DNA and history, but had become strangers. She looked older than I remembered, tired around the eyes. I heard about the fire, she said finally. Mom told me. She said you were lucky you weren't home. I tried calling, but your number didn't work. I got a new phone, new number, fresh start. Dad, she struggled with the words. I've been thinking about you. A lot. Michael too, though he won't admit it. Mom and Jim, her new boyfriend, they're already having problems. Watching her try to rebuild at 65 while tearing everyone else down, it has made me realize some things. What things? That maybe we were too harsh. That maybe we bought into her narrative without questioning it. That I miss my father. The words I'd waited months to hear felt strange, almost hollow now, not because I didn't still love my daughter, but because I'd learned to survive without her approval. Sarah, I am glad you are questioning things. I am glad you are here, but I need you to understand something. I am not the same man I was a year ago. I've lost things, yes, but I've also gained perspective. I've learned who I am without all the trappings of career and family expectations. I want to know that person, she said, tears starting to form. If you'll let me. I thought about Catherine, about second chances, about the strange paths that lead us to redemption. I'd like that. It won't be quick, and it won't be easy, but I'd like that. We exchanged new numbers. She promised to call. As she left the store, I found myself believing her. That evening, I told Catherine what had happened. She listened carefully, then said something that surprised me. Be careful, Robert. Hope is precious, but it is also fragile. Protect yourself while you explore this reconnection. People don't change overnight, and families are complicated. I know, but I have to try. I know you do. Just remember, you have a home here. Whatever happens with Sarah, with your family, you have a home. Sarah did call. We met for coffee the following week, awkward and cautious, two people learning each other again. She told me about her life, her marriage, her children, my grandchildren, ages 7 and 5. She showed me pictures, and I felt an ache for all the birthdays and holidays I'd missed. She apologized for cutting me off, explaining that she'd been caught between loyalty to her mother and her own doubts. Mom painted you as this failure, Sarah said. She made it seem like you'd given up on life, on us. But seeing you now, working, living independently, you seem more at peace than I've seen you in years. I found purpose again, I told her. Different purpose than before, but maybe better, more authentic. Over the next several months, Sarah and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. She brought my grandchildren to meet me, and their easy acceptance, their simple joy in having another person to love them, healed something I didn't know was still broken. Michael remained distant, still too aligned with Eleanor's perspective, but Sarah thought he might come around eventually. Catherine watched this unfold with quiet support. She encouraged my relationship with Sarah, while also providing a grounding presence when I worried too much about Eleanor's reactions or Michael's silence. In return, I encouraged Catherine when she finally decided to try reaching out to her own children. The response wasn't what she hoped. One child refused contact entirely. The other, her youngest daughter, agreed to meet, but remained cold, unable or unwilling to look past the accusations that had defined Catherine's fall from grace. Catherine was devastated but not destroyed. I tried, she said after that unsuccessful meeting. That is all I can do. I tried. On the anniversary of the fire, Catherine and I did something neither of us had planned. We went to the memorial that had been erected for the 3 people who died in the blaze. We stood before their names carved into a simple stone marker, and we acknowledged the randomness of survival, the privilege of second chances. I think about them, Catherine said quietly. The people who died, I think about how thin the line is between being here and being gone. Do you ever wish you'd never warned me, that you'd let fate play out? She looked at me sharply. Never, Robert. Saving you saved me too. Don't you understand? Knowing I could still do something good, still make a difference. It reminded me who I was before everything fell apart. You gave me back my purpose. That evening, Back at our apartment, we made a decision. We would start a small fund, whatever we could save from our modest paychecks, to help people in situations like Catherine had been in. People who fell through the cracks, who lost everything, who needed someone to believe in them. It wasn't much, maybe $20 a week between us, but it was something. It was purpose. Tom Morrison retired the following spring, and he offered to sell me the hardware store at a price I could actually afford with a long-term payment plan. Catherine and I discussed it for weeks, running numbers, considering risks. We were both nearing 70, not exactly prime age for entrepreneurship, but hadn't we already proven that age was just a number, that reinvention was possible at any stage? We bought the store. Morrison's Hardware became Walsh and Donovan Hardware, and we hung a sign in the window. Everyone deserves good tools and a fresh start. Catherine handled the books and customer service while I managed inventory and repairs. We hired 2 part-time employees, both older workers who'd struggled to find employment elsewhere. Sarah and my grandchildren visited the store regularly. My grandson, Tommy, age 8 by then, loved helping me organize the tool section. My granddaughter, Emma, would sit with Catherine at the counter, coloring in notebooks while Catherine worked. These small moments, these mundane interactions, felt like treasure. Michael eventually reached out, 2 years after the divorce. He called one evening, voice tight with emotion, saying he was sorry. His own marriage was struggling, and he'd realized how quickly he judged me when his life was falling apart in similar ways. We met for dinner, and it was awkward, painful in places, but real. We were 2 grown men trying to find common ground, and that was enough to start. Eleanor, I heard through Sarah, had married Jim within a year of our divorce. They'd separated within another year. She'd lost money in a bad investment and had to sell the house we'd raised our children in. Sarah said she seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the life she'd chased. I felt sad for her. This woman I'd spent 4 decades with, but I didn't feel responsible for her happiness anymore. That was her journey to make. On my 70th birthday, Catherine organized a small party at the hardware store. Sarah and her family came. Michael came with his teenage son. Tom Morrison came with his wife. Some of our customers came. People who'd become friends over the years. We ate cake and told stories, and I looked around at this cobbled-together community and felt wealthy beyond measure. Catherine made a toast. To Robert, who taught me that rock bottom is just a foundation for rebuilding, who showed me that kindness isn't weakness, and that second chances are real. Happy birthday, my friend. Later, after everyone had gone home, Catherine and I sat in the store's back office, counting the day's receipts. Do you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. The divorce, losing your old life, all of it. I thought carefully before answering. I regret the pain. I regret the years with my children I can't get back. But the man I was before the divorce, he was successful but hollow. He'd forgotten how to be present, how to find joy in simple things. I had to lose everything to find out what actually mattered. And what matters? This, I said, gesturing to the store around us. Purpose, connection, knowing that what you do makes even a small difference. You saved my life, Catherine, in more ways than pulling me from that fire. You showed me what resilience looks like. You showed me it is never too late to start over. She smiled, her face now fuller and healthier than when I'd first seen her on that corner. We saved each other, Robert. That is how it works when you stop keeping score. 3 years after that conversation, I am sitting at the counter of Walsh and Donovan Hardware on a Tuesday afternoon, helping a young woman pick out supplies to build her first bookshelf. She is nervous about trying, convinced she'll mess it up. I tell her what I've learned, that mistakes are just lessons, and the only real failure is not trying at all. Catherine is in the office, talking with a man who recently lost his job at 62. She is helping him update his resume and apply for positions, drawing on her old social work skills. She does this once a week now, volunteers her time to help older workers navigate a job market that doesn't want them. She says it is healing old wounds, reclaiming the purpose that was stolen from her. My grandchildren visit every Sunday. Michael and I have coffee every month, still rebuilding, still learning each other. Sarah calls me almost daily, sending pictures and updates, including me in her life. Eleanor and I spoke once, briefly, at Michael's son's graduation. It was civil, even kind. We both moved on to different lives, different understandings of what happiness means. The small fund Catherine and I started has grown. Other people contribute now, moved by our story, wanting to help. We've helped 17 people get off the streets, find housing, find dignity. It is not changing the world, but it is changing individual worlds, and that is enough. Sometimes I think about that moment when Catherine grabbed my wrist, when she told me not to go home, how easily I could have dismissed her, ignored her warning, ended up as another name on that memorial stone. How one moment of trust, of believing in unlikely angels, changed everything. Life after 67, after divorce, after loss, isn't what I imagined during those comfortable decades of marriage and career. It is harder in many ways. My body aches more, my bank account holds less, but my days hold more meaning, my relationships are more honest, my purpose is clearer. Catherine says that trauma either destroys you or refines you, and you get to choose which. We chose refinement. We chose to let our pain teach us instead of define us. We chose to believe that as long as you are breathing, as long as you can still bend down to help someone else, there is purpose left to find. And on difficult days, when doubt creeps in, when I wonder if all this rebuilding means anything, I remember $3 in a plastic cup. I remember invisible kindness between strangers. I remember that sometimes saving someone else's life is exactly how you save your own.